Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to HANA's third quarter review. So I'd like to start off with the results for the third quarter. Operating profits were 864 million, which was up year on year 24% and up on the quarter 46%. Sales in baht terms were up 21% and in dollar terms about 9% because the Thai baht, of course, weakened during that period. Operating profits up 24% and the margins were the same. And we generated cash of around 1.28 billion baht, which is up 24% from a year ago. Net profits after tax dropped 26% because of exchange losses on our hedging. Net cash and short-term investments from a year ago dropped 55% as we continue to invest very heavily in our expansion. On a quarter-to-quarter basis, revenues were up 18% in baht terms and also operating profits up 46%. Moving on to each operation, starting with our EMS business in Lamphun. So for the year, sales were up 9%. Which is about flat in US dollar terms and up about 15% on the quarter. And we continue to see very strong demand for automotive. Test and measurement was also quite stable. We had some problems with our IoT because of materials, but I think that will improve later on. We definitely see PC dropping further. PC continues to drop after COVID situation, everyone going back to work, children coming back to school. Therefore, the demand for PC has come off substantially between 15 and 20% year on year. Industrials are quite stable for us. Medical, unfortunately, dropped a little bit because of some specific customer issues, but it's still quite small business for us. And telecom remains weak, and we believe that will remain weak until mid-23. The outlook for the fourth quarter will be fairly flat. Possibly some growth if we can get more materials in on time. Moving on to China for our EMS business in Jiaxing. Sales are up quite strong, 29% on the year and 55% on the quarter. And this is mainly because in the micro business in China, we have a high exposure to access control. And this business was impacted significantly during the COVID period because it relates to hospitality, hotels, schools, offices, access control, right? And that has now come back very strongly because we, at least in the West, we're over COVID. So we see a big rebound coming for our China operation in this industry. Looking ahead, we think the fourth quarter will be relatively flat. But if we can get some more materials, we might see some improvements. Unfortunately, all over the world, energy costs are rising. So we are feeling the impact because of higher energy costs, not just in China, also in Thailand as well. But it was offset by a slightly weaker renminbi to the US dollar. If we look at the auto industry, which is a big part of HANA's exposure, most of the major companies perform very well, although they have been impacted by continuing shortages in semiconductors. So this issue about the supply chain is still impacting auto companies' ability to meet demand. So most of the big companies still complain that they cannot get enough semiconductors. VW, Ford, everyone's still complaining. And what they're doing is they're focusing the limited amount of chips they have to the expensive cars, so they're more profitable, but the number of cars they sell is less. In terms of looking at PC, dropping between 15 or more, again, this is because everyone is not staying at home and starting to go back to a life, pre-COVID life. So we see big drops in coming there. And frankly speaking, this is an industry which HANA strategically is looking to reduce our exposure. So we're not chasing this business. You can see PCs will continue to correct, although possibly we might see a leveling out in the second half of next year. Moving on to our IC business in Ayutthaya, sales were up 21% year on year and 8% on the quarter. We saw slightly lower loadings, but our product mix helped us in achieving the higher revenues. The mobile business has been very weak, and this started after the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and also the lockdowns in China, and that continues to be weak. And we expect mobile to remain pretty low until probably the second half of next year. Most of our customers, as you can imagine, are very worried about the recession going forward, so they are watching their inventory very, very, very carefully. But we believe automotive will hold and industrial will be less impacted. We also see a lot more interest in the Ayutthaya due to the decoupling issue between the US and China. And our marketing team are currently in the United States talking to all our big customers, and a lot of them are very active in wanting to reduce their exposure to China. And this is an opportunity for Asia, Southeast Asia, and for HANA in Thailand specifically. And we will continue to invest heavily in automation because we anticipate the Thai baht to strengthen and minimum wages to start having an impact on our cost. Moving on to Jiaxing, for our IC business, sales were up 60% year on year and 27% on the quarter. Despite the fact that we have a big impact due to the China mobile business, our EV module business grew very substantially. In fact, it's up year on year 600%, and that helped to offset the mobile weakness. Also, you may remember, if you follow HANA, we are going to introduce a new business, RFID inlays, and the equipment has just arrived, and we hope to start manufacturing this business at the end of this year. And this we expect to see a positive impact next year. This is the device that will replace barcodes for anything sold in a retail outlet. You can see here, global smartphones in the third quarter fell around 9%. And actually, at the beginning of this year, the outlook was that the mobile phone business would grow 9%, but actually it looked like between 9 and 12% falling. So it's close to a 20% difference between the original outlook and what really is going to happen. And that's a significant drop. Worldwide semiconductor revenues are starting to fall off. So the cycle definitely is turning. There's no question about it. If you look at the numbers, you can see year on year, we're down 3% and month on month down 0.5%. Okay, so you can see whichever way you want to measure it, there's a drop in demand because everyone is concerned about rising interest rates impact on consumers. The semiconductor correction has been very, very swift, and this is a chart showing the index of semiconductor companies. You can see they've fallen, but I want to just point out to you that not all semiconductors are the same, because the semiconductor is a very big industry. We need to look at which part of the semiconductor industry that HANA is focused on. And the big falls are in memory and microprocessors, which we are not really have a high exposure. Okay, we're more in mixed signal analog businesses, which is still impacted, but not as sharply impacted as the other one. In terms of our unit output for IC packaging, the blue is Ayutthaya and the red is Jiaxing. So you can see we are slightly down on the quarter in terms of units, but as you remember, our revenues went up because of the change in mix. In the USA, in Ohio, we saw a 50% increase year on year and an 18% on the quarter, which is a very good result. We saw a good strong increase in demand for our telecom and micro activities, and our RFID tags grew 14% over the quarter. Okay, it continues to grow very substantially, and year on year we're up 300%, and we could be even higher had we not had problems in getting the semiconductors for this business. So this is a good example of still having shortages in certain industries for semiconductors, even though in other industries we have now too much. And we are renovating the new building that we have acquired. It's unfortunately going to be delayed due to some delays of air conditioning equipment, but we will be in the first quarter of next year, and this will help us to grow Ohio moving forward. Okay, this is a picture of the new facility. Up until now, we have been renting our location, and this one we have purchased, so we will own the land, we own the building. And it is more than 2 times the size of the existing one because we are investing for the future growth. A lot more manufacturing is coming back to America because of this decoupling issue, and we want to position ourselves to capture that market share. Moving on to Cambodia, our sales grew over 200%, of course, from a very low base, and 130% on the quarter. Our biggest business is still the remote control business, but we have won a new project, passive components. There's a picture at the bottom on the left, and we have started mass production. And in collaboration with Lampoon, who have supported Cambodia with a semi-automatic line, which we've developed in-house, we are producing close to 1 million of these devices a month. And this will help. This is the reason why we've seen the big increase in the sales. Okay. The fourth quarter, I think, will be similar, but we definitely see more opportunities because of the China-US decoupling and the need for companies in America using the US TAA, which basically allows like a tax-free benefit if it comes from a TAA country, which is Cambodia is one of those. Moving on to our end production, you can see the drop in telecom, but the increase in autos. Industrial down a little bit, opto slightly up, computer down, as we told you, and RFID recovering nicely. So in summary, despite PC sales down 15%, globally, mobiles down 9%, and the semiconductor business starting to ease off, we performed very well. And that is the reason why we did that was 2 reasons. Because of our sector diversification is good, 1, and obviously the stronger US dollar helped in our operating margins because of the weaker Thai baht. Autos remained strong along with test and measurement, and a rebound in access control helped to offset the weakness in mobile. And the EV module growth continues to grow very, very steadily. And with the introduction of inlay business, we think that this is going to drive China and the US quite nicely next year. And in addition to that, our take or pay deals that we arranged with some of our customers last year has come in at the right time, helping to offset the weakness in the mobile business. Looking ahead in the fourth quarter and outlook, everyone is expecting a recession. Okay, it's not if, it's when, how long, and how steep, how big. Okay, so I don't have the answer. I don't know the answer to that, but everyone, including our company, believe next year will be challenging because the high interest rates will impact the consumer. The US Fed has increased them very quickly, and it's beginning to feed into consumer demand, but that impact will start to get more and more felt as time goes on. And we believe during the first half of next year, many consumers will really start to feel the impact of the increase in borrowing costs. Okay. Anyway, since the beginning of this year, and because of the war in Ukraine and the lockdown and the Fed increase, most of our customers are very focused on managing their inventory. So this is not a new thing. This is something that's already started. It will continue, but I think the management of inventory is well into, I would say, the middle stage. Okay. Okay, I don't expect it to rebound, but I don't expect it to be significantly lower going forward because they've already started at least 6 months ago. We believe that the drop in mobile will stay low until the second half of next year. Hopefully then it will recover. And as I mentioned earlier, our PC business will reduce because we are moving away from it anyway. We think inflation rates will be high, although it looks like slowing down a little bit. And maybe the US Fed is getting close to terminal rate. And that's why you see the Thai baht strengthening very recently, because a lot of people believe that the Fed will start to reduce the increase in the rate. Therefore, you see the dollar index coming down. Okay. Sanctions due to the Ukrainian war will keep energy costs high. And of course, this is going to impact in terms of inflation. So really, everyone is watching what's going to go on, what's going to happen during the winter. If we have a very bad winter, that's going to increase the cost of energy and inflation will remain high. But if the winter is not so cold, then inflation may start to ease off, and that will impact the Fed's rate of increase and also the exchange rate between the Thai baht and the US dollar. In the third quarter, actually, the US economy grew quite well, and so did it grow unexpectedly better than we thought in the EU zone. But I think everybody believes that next year we're going to see a much more difficult set of economic numbers, and that's why we're all preparing for this slowdown next year. So in a recession, how are we positioned? So I think that HANA's diversification will continue to support any major impact that the recession may have on us. We think that the mobile business is getting close to the bottom, but we don't expect recovery until the second half or later in the part of next year. We think auto demand issue, the bottlenecks continues to persist, which is good for us. They still need to buy our parts. But I think higher interest rates will start to impact later in next year. So we have to watch that one. The deals we struck a year ago, take or pay, will be very supportive. So I'm not expecting a big drop, but obviously we're not expecting much growth given the recession outlook. The one good news is that we are getting a lot more inquiries from American companies wanting to reduce their exposure to China. But this will not have the effect immediately, but maybe towards the end of next year or in 24, we will start to see the benefits of moving away from Western companies from the China exposure supply chain. I think significantly for us, the losses that we have been incurring in our Korea operation has peaked in the third quarter as we have ramped up, and I will talk about this in a minute. We think that the weakness we may experience next year will be offset in the reduction in losses that we've been incurring up until now in Korea. And our new business lines, RFID and the silicon carbide in Korea, I think will help to offset a potential impact of any recession. I'd like also to mention that the chip ban you may read about, the US chip ban in China will not affect HANA's business because we're not doing those kind of high-end logic, low nanometer type of business, right? Like DRAMs and NAND flash. HANA's basic semiconductor uses is relatively low end and is not impacted by the ban. You can see here how the inflation has knocked off the US from the top. We don't know what it will be. Most people now are expecting the baht, US dollar Thai baht, to be high 35, low 36 going forward, depending on how the Fed may raise interest rates. In terms of our liquidity, we generated 1.1 billion. CapEx was lower, and our net cash, as I said, has decreased substantially because we are investing in our future. Moving on to silicon carbide now. So our operation generated 109 million baht, which is 1,000% more because last year was very little, and 250% on last quarter. But importantly, this quarter, Q3, was a very important quarter for this business because this is the quarter in which most of our equipment has now been installed and we started mass production. Okay, and that's why you see this big jump. But Q4 will be an even bigger jump because in Q3 we're just starting. Okay, the yields, this is important, as we start mass production, have been very good and in line with our targets. So we're very happy about that. It's the first time because the first time we do mass production. Our silicon carbide MOSFET, which is the most important device, has been very well received. We launched that in May and have been sent to many companies for qualification. And for automotive, it takes about a year, so it will take time to be fully qualified. But up until now, the feedback we get from our customers is that we have no quality issue, even though they have still another 6 months to go to have the final qualification. But so far, the performance has been very, very good. Our order book for our silicon business is now totally full. We have actually sold out of our capacity and we are looking to see if we can get subcontract capacity elsewhere. We're not sure if we can, but we're trying very hard. Okay, so that's good news because China is still relatively strong and looking for the type of devices that we can build. Why? Because many American companies are moving away from China, and this is an opportunity for PMS to support that growth in China. And as I mentioned, the losses peaked in the third quarter. So going forward, we anticipate that to reduce. Okay, it will still be a loss next year, but significantly lower than in 2022. And because of the success in the ramp up, I have already allowed the ordering of new equipment that will come in Q3, Q4 next year, which will double the capacity of this operation in Korea. EV vehicles continue to grow every single quarter and hit another record in Q3. And we anticipate strong growth of the EV, and one silicon carbide wafer can only produce on average 6.5 EV cars. So you can imagine how many silicon carbide wafers you're going to need as the world converts from ICE car to EV car. And HANA has all the back-end module and discrete packaging solutions because that's our core business. And as we ramp up the output in Korea, these devices will be packaged and assembled starting in Jiaxing first, and later on we plan to do that in the UTR. Okay, I open the floor for questions. So the product lines we have invested heavily, mostly, of course, is in Korea, as I mentioned earlier, because semiconductor wafer fabrication, the investment is very high. So most of our investment this year and next year will be in Korea.
โอเคขอแปลนิดนึงนะคะคำถามข้อแรกนะคะที่ถามที่เห็นเข้ามานะคะถามว่าผลิตภัณฑ์ประเภทใดที่ฮาน่าจะลงทุนมากสุดนะคะคำตอบของมิสเตอร์ริชาร์ดก็คือปีหน้าเราจะลงทุนมากในพาร์ทที่เป็นโรงงานของเราที่เกาหลีนะคะเป็น wafer fab นะคะ
I think I've answered that question about the outlook for each product sector, but basically I would say mobile and PC are going to be low until probably the end of next year. We think industrial will be flat, maybe slightly up. We think consumer will be flat. For us, maybe slightly up because of the type of consumer, but in general, consumer business will be impacted by exchange rates. We think that the silicon carbide business will grow substantially next year, and our hope is that the growth of that will help to offset any weakness in the other sectors. And our new RFID inlay tag business, we think will grow very substantially next year, again, helping to offset any weaknesses in the other activities.
ข้อที่คำถามที่มาถามมานะคะถามว่าเรามองว่าปีหน้า จะเป็นอย่างไรนะคะซึ่งคุณริชาร์ดบอกว่าก็ตอบไปในตอนที่คุณริชาร์ดพรีเซนต์แล้วแต่หลักๆก็คือผลิตภัณฑ์ประเภทที่เป็นโทรศัพท์มือถือหรือ PC เนี่ยมองว่ามันจะตกลงนะคะภายในปีหน้าแล้วก็ธุรกิจประเภทที่เป็น industrial นะคะก็จะมองว่ามันจะเป็นประมาณเดิมนะคะแต่ธุรกิจประเภท EV แล้วก็ RFID เนี่ยที่เรามีแนวโน้มดูว่าจะเติบโตขึ้นเนี่ยก็น่าจะสามารถที่จะมาถัวเฉลี่ยทำให้ผลประกอบการเราดีได้ค่ะมีคำถามต่อไปไหมคะ next question please
Okay, so maybe I don't have any more questions from you at the moment, so maybe I can just try to summarize what we think the outlook will be for next year and the factors that will affect us.
ถ้าไม่มีคำถามนะคะคุณริชาร์ดจะขอรวบรวมว่าปีหน้าจะเป็นยังไงสิ่งที่จะกระทบกับเราหรือว่าแนวโน้มของบริษัทเราจะเป็นยังไงนะคะ
So on the negative side, we think the Thai baht will be on average stronger next year than it has been this year, and that will impact our margins because of that issue.
ถ้าในทางลบนะคะที่เราเห็นเรามองว่าด้วยค่าเงินบาทที่แข็งขึ้นเนี่ยจะส่งผลกระทบกับผลประกอบการของเรานะคะ
Then we have some of our core businesses like mobile, which we think is going to be weak up until towards the end of next year, but we don't think it's going to drop significantly more than it's already dropped because that weakness has already started at least 6 months ago.
ค่ะแล้วก็อีกส่วนหนึ่งก็คือธุรกิจหลักของเราที่เป็นประเภทโทรศัพท์มือถือเนี่ยค่ะเรามองว่ามันก็น่าจะยังอยู่ในภาวะที่ยังตกต่ำอยู่นะคะแต่ว่าเรามองว่ามันตกไปมากแล้วเมื่อ6 เดือนที่ผ่านมาตกไปมากแล้วเราไม่มองว่ามันจะไม่น่าจะตกไปกว่านี้แล้วนะคะ
Automotive has remained pretty strong throughout this year. We anticipate maybe some weakness next year, but we don't anticipate a big drop because the supply chain issue is still behind, and many auto companies still do not have enough electronics for their cars.
ค่ะส่วนผลิตภัณฑ์หรือประเภทธุรกิจที่เป็นเกี่ยวกับยานยนต์นะคะเรามองว่าอาจจะมีผลกระทบบ้างเล็กน้อยนะคะเนื่องจากปัญหาของsupply chain แต่ว่าเรามองว่ามันไม่จะไม่กระทบเยอะนะคะตัวส่วนของที่เป็นผลิตภัณฑ์เกี่ยวกับยานยนต์ค่ะ
And there's still a very long waiting list when if you want to buy a new car today.
ค่ะแล้วก็อย่างที่ทุกคนน่าจะทราบว่าเวลาเราจะซื้อรถที่เป็นรถไฟฟ้าตอนนี้เราต้องรอคิวนานพอสมควร
The conversion from ICE car, internal combustion engine, to EV is accelerating much faster than anybody expected. ค่ะแล้วก็การขายจากรถที่เป็นเครื่องยนต์สันดาปมาเป็นรถประเภทไฟฟ้าเนี่ยเราทุกคนจะเห็นทราบเลยว่ามันเติบโตขึ้นอย่างเยอะแล้วก็เกินกว่าความคาดหมายเลยนะคะ And our exposure to the EV car industry is growing, and so we will benefit from that. Not only the car, also like the charging system, the charger also needs a lot of the devices that we are now starting to deliver. ค่ะแล้วก็รถยนต์ไฟฟ้าเนี่ยนะคะนอกจากตัวรถยนต์แล้วเราเองในผลิตภัณฑ์ของ HANA เองก็มีส่วนอยู่ในพวก charging นะคะซึ่งต้องการ device ที่เราผลิตประเภทที่เราผลิตเนี่ยเยอะมากเลยค่ะ So our PowerMaster business in Korea is starting to become a real business now with delivering product and growing. And it's come at just the right time when our main business will be under some pressure. I think all businesses will be under some pressure because of this anticipated recession next year. But this business, which was accruing a lot of losses next year, is starting to improve now. And so those losses will reduce. There will still be losses, but they will reduce. And the top sale will also grow, helping to offset the weakness in our existing businesses.
แล้วก็PMS ของเราที่เกาหลีนะคะตอนนี้ก็เหมือนกับเป็นช่วงเวลาที่เขาเหมาะสมมากเพราะว่าเขากำลังเริ่มที่ผลิตเป็น mass production เป็นเริ่มผลิตได้มากขึ้นซึ่งนั่นก็จะมาช่วยว่าแบ่งเบาเพราะว่าธุรกิจหลักเราเนี่ยเจอกับภาวะถดถอยทางเศรษฐกิจนะคะแล้วก็จะทำให้ส่วนของ PMS ซึ่งตอนนี้ถึงผลประกอบการของ PMS เนี่ยยังจะเป็นลบแต่เรามองว่ามันจะค่อยๆดีขึ้นเรื่อยๆค่ะ
And also the RFID inlay business, which I explained to you, we started in America and is now setting up mass production lines in China. This is also a new business which is growing very, very fast. And no matter the recession, this will definitely grow next year because we already have the orders. And what's happening is that the very big retailers in America, like Walmart and Kohl's and Target, are all converting from using a barcode to manage their inventory to this RFID active tag. So the demand for these tags are in the multiples of billions, thousand millions. Okay, so this business is going to grow no matter what, and it's a new business for us. So this business and the PMS business are all new businesses which will be growing no matter the recession next year and will help to offset what we are worried about may be, the weakness in our core business.
ค่ะแล้วก็ส่วนผลิตภัณฑ์ที่เป็น RFID กับ Inlay Tag ที่เราผลิตที่ HANA Ohio ที่อเมริกานะคะเราตั้งลายผลิตที่ HANA ที่เมืองจีนของเราแล้วซึ่งเราคาดว่านะคะผลิตตรงเนี้ยมันจะไม่โดนกระทบจากเศรษฐกิจที่ถดถอยเนื่องจากว่ามีคำสั่งซื้อมาอย่างแน่นอนจากบริษัทประเภทพวกWalmart หรือ Target นะคะเป็นล้านชิ้นเลยเพราะว่าเขาเปลี่ยนจากใช้บาร์โค้ดเปลี่ยนมาเป็น RFID tag นะคะก็จะทำให้ธุรกิจประเภท RFID tag ของเราแล้วก็ของ PMS เนี่ยจะช่วยแบ่งเบาหรือว่ามาบาลานซ์ในส่วนที่เป็นธุรกิจหลักของเราที่เป็นประเภทโทรศัพท์มือถือได้ค่ะ
Any questions?
มีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะ เหมือนจะมีคำถามเข้ามานะคะสักครู่นะคะโอเคคำถามที่3นะคะคาดหวังยอดขาย
แล้วก็ยังยืน
โอเคนะคะคำถามที่3คาดหวังยอดขายของซิลิคอนคาร์บายด์ในปี 2023 จะเป็นเท่าไหร่และสัดส่วนและเดี๋ยวนะคะและเป็นอย่างไรนะคะส่วนนี้เป็นอย่างไรโอเคเดี๋ยวขอถามคุณริชาร์ดนะคะ What is expectation of the silicon carbide sales in 2023?
So at the moment we are targeting between 32 and 35 million US dollars for silicon carbide sales next year.
ปีหน้านะคะเราคาดว่ายอดขายของซิลิคอนคาร์บายด์จะประมาณ32 ถึง 35 ล้านเหรียญ US ดอลลาร์นะคะ
about 1.25 billion baht
ประมาณ 1,200 ล้านบาทนะคะคำถามที่ 4 นะคะสินค้าที่เกาหลีผลิตขายหรือยังนะคะ The next question is are we selling the PMS product yet
Yes we are
โอเคเราขายแล้วนะคะเราเริ่มขายแล้วยอดขายเราเริ่มเข้ามาแล้วนะคะเป็น mass production แล้วค่ะnext question RFID Okay, the RFID product is it how much is it right now and is it stable?
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this RFID. We started this business in the US about 15 years ago, but we were just doing the service of putting the chip onto the antenna. So really it was a typical subcontract type of activity for us.
ค่ะส่วน RFID เนี่ยนะคะเป็นธุรกิจที่เราทำที่ US มาที่สหรัฐอเมริกามาเนี่ย15 ปีมาแล้วนะคะโดยการที่เราเอาชิปเนี่ยใส่ลงไปในแอนเทนานะคะตั้งแต่ตอนเริ่มแรกเราเป็นแบบนี้
So we don't make a lot of money because we're doing a very simple assembly function. ค่ะในส่วนนี้เราไม่ได้กำไรหรือยอดขายก็ไม่ได้มากเพราะว่าเราทำแค่เหมือนเป็นservice เฉยๆอย่างเดียวค่ะ But we could see that there is a very high potential that this product could grow very 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 quickly at some point. So over the past few years we looked to see if we could buy a company that designs and develops the RFID so that we can add more value to the already existing assembly part that we're doing. In other words, have our own product.
ค่ะแล้วก็เราเห็นว่าแนวโน้มของ RFID เนี่ยมันมีแนวโน้มที่เติบโตเพราะฉะนั้น 2-3 ปีที่ผ่านมาเราก็เลยคิดว่าเราซื้อบริษัทนะคะที่เขามีความรู้ความมี expertise ในการที่จะทำผลิตภัณฑ์ที่สามารถที่จะต่อยอดเพื่อที่จะเพิ่มมูลค่าของผลิตภัณฑ์ของเราได้
Unfortunately, we could not find a company, that was suitable for us to purchase. So what we did in the end was we took out some key managers from different companies to create our own know-how and company to enter this business from a product basis, not just a service basis.
เราก็พยายามหาบริษัทที่เขาเป็นมีความถนัดทางด้านนี้แต่เราหาไม่ได้สิ่งที่เราทำเราก็เลยจ้างนะคะคนที่เขามีความรู้ความสามารถแล้วเราก็มาเริ่มในการที่develop ของเราเพื่อที่จะเข้ามาในธุรกิจนี้ค่ะ
And this event happened at the beginning of last year.
ค่ะแล้วอันนี้เริ่มตั้งแต่ปลายปีที่แล้วค่ะ
So between that time and now, our team have developed our own range of devices which compete with other companies as well, and we are getting a lot of demand from many companies starting off in the USA.
ค่ะแล้วก็ทีมของเราที่เราเอาเข้ามาที่เป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งหลายเนี่ยเขาก็develop ผลิตภัณฑ์ขึ้นมาแล้วเราก็เลยได้รับคำสั่งซื้อมากมายจากบริษัทใหญ่ๆนะคะในอเมริกาเริ่มจากบริษัทในอเมริกาก่อน
And then the big companies like Walmart came to us and said, we are looking for a company to do what you're doing, but we want it done in China.
ค่ะแล้วก็ Walmart ติดต่อเราเข้ามานะคะแล้วก็บอกเราว่าต้องการผลิตภัณฑ์ประเภทนี้แต่ต้องการให้ผลิตในเมืองจีนนะคะ
Because they buy something like 70% of everything they sell from China.
เพราะว่า Walmart เนี่ยซื้อผลิตภัณฑ์ต่างๆที่เขาขายเนี่ยในเมืองจีนอยู่แล้วค่ะ
So they don't want this part to be made in America and then shipped to China. It has to be made in China and then sent to the suppliers of Walmart.
ค่ะเขาก็เลยต้องการที่จะได้ RFID tag ที่ผลิตในเมืองจีนจะได้ส่งให้ผู้ขายของเขาในเมืองจีนได้
Yeah. So we invested in the equipment and we have two large automated lines. One has already just come in and will start mass production by the end of this year, so very soon. And the other one will come around May or June. We have to wait for it. And we already have the orders to supply these customers because Walmart have qualified us for their suppliers.
เราลงทุนเครื่องจักรนะคะเป็นสองรายการผลิตรายแรกเนี่ยมาตั้งแต่ปลายปีมาจะเข้าปลายปีนี้นะคะพร้อมแล้วก็อีกเครื่องจักรอีกรายหนึ่งจะมาประมาณเดือนพฤษภาเดือนมิถุนายนนะคะแต่เราได้รับคำสั่งซื้อเรียบร้อยจาก Walmart เรียบร้อย
And why I'm confident that this business will grow very fast is because even if we have a recession, all these big retailers like Walmart are going to convert from the barcode to this RFID tag because they can make a big saving in how they manage their inventory. And the company that's paying for it is the supplier, their supplier. So that's why Walmart want to do it because they don't have to pay for it. They force their supplier. If you supply, for example, clothes or jeans, in the future, if you want to continue to supply Walmart, every jean has to have one of these tags on. And you know, the jean manufacturer has to pay for it.
คุณริชาร์ดมั่นใจนะคะว่าผลิตภัณฑ์ RFID tag ของเราเนี่ยจะถึงแม้จะมีเรื่องเศรษฐกิจถดถอยขึ้นมาผลิตภัณฑ์พวกนี้จะไม่กระทบเนื่องจากว่าบริษัทยักษ์ใหญ่อย่าง Walmart เนี่ยต้องการที่จะเปลี่ยนบาร์โค้ดเป็น RFID tag ทั้งหมดนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเขาก็ให้คู่ค้าของเขาที่พวกที่ส่งเสื้อผ้าหรือที่กางเกงยีนหรืออะไรที่จะขายให้เขาเนี่ยเปลี่ยนจากบาร์โค้ดเป็น RFID tag ทั้งหมดค่ะแล้วมันก็จะทำให้เขามีประหยัดในส่วนนี้ไปเยอะมากเลยค่ะ
So we have a few minutes. Any last questions?
มีคำถามเพิ่มอีกไหมคะ
Okay, so if no questions, thank you for your continued interest in the company. We're working hard to grow the business. Oops, sorry, question, last one. There are many competitors in the, well, not many, but there are a few, and most of the SiC manufacturers are the very large. I would say there are 5 or 6 major companies, power management companies, who do all sorts of power management, including silicon carbide. We are the first pure Korean company to do it, and I think one of our advantages are that we can sell to China more easily because we're not considered part of this decoupling concern.
ค่ะคำถามนะคะคำถามที่6ที่เข้ามาถามว่าโรงงานซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์เนี่ยเรามีคู่แข่งในตลาดหรือเปล่าอะไรเงี้ยค่ะแล้วก็HANA เปรียบเทียบกับเขาเป็นยังไงคุณริชาร์ดตอบว่าเราบริษัทคู่แข่งเนี่ยถ้าเปรียบเทียบแล้วเนี่ยเขาจะเป็นบริษัทยักษ์ใหญ่กันซึ่งเป็นบริษัททางตะวันตกเยอะเราเป็นบริษัทซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์โรงงานซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์เกาหลีที่แรกนะคะแล้วก็ข้อได้เปรียบของเราสามารถที่จะขายไปได้ทั่วเพราะว่าไม่ได้มีปัญหาเกี่ยวกับเรื่องคู่แข่งทางการค้าของประเทศตะวันตกตะวันออกอย่างเงี้ยค่ะมีคำถามไหมคะ
automatically shut
ใช้ได้
เรียบร้อย
เสร็จหรือเปล่าคะเสร็จแล้วไหมคะ
close
close
closely
close